But guess what, folks? I don't care about the money.
Seen it once, don't remember when. Think it's time to watch it again. Follow, subscribe, stay up to date. Episodes drop the last Friday. It's a Matt, forgot that. It's a Matt, forgot that. It's a Matt, forgot that podcast.
Welcome to the Matt Forgot That podcast, the place to recollect and reminisce. I'm your host, Matt Seroski, filmmaker, film fan. Each episode, I'm going to rewatch and review a movie or TV pilot that I've seen before but don't quite remember. It could be a blockbuster, critic's choice, or cult classic. To join in on the conversation, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Matt Seroski. You can subscribe to my YouTube page where I'll post videos and clips from the show. If you have any opinions on what I've reviewed, or want to share your own trip down memory lane, use the hashtag MattForgotThat on social. Before we start, I had the good fortune of seeing Masters of the Universe in theaters, and I wanted to give my review of the film. It's been a bit of an anomaly because if you look at the audience score, it's gotten a lot of great reactions. But it seems like the industry is so focused on the box office, and when a movie costs $200 million to make, almost anything is going to fall short of expectations. But guess what, folks? I don't care about the money. I have one criteria for films. Was I entertained? And let me tell you, Masters of the Universe is a popcorn flick with all the elements of a summer blockbuster. It's got plenty of action, dazzling special effects, and a cast that looks like they're having fun in the roles. And unlike the 1987 version with Dolph Lundgren, which, by the way, I do love, this one is much more true to the characters. I mean, it looks like the action figures I had growing up came alive on screen. The details were so meticulous. Now, the movie was very aware of itself, but the humor didn't feel forced or over the top. I actually liked the explanations of some of the character names, which admittedly are a little silly. Ram Man, Fisto, insert your own joke here. Now, as frequent listeners of the podcast will know, any movie over 2 hours puts a strain on my bladder, and this one is no exception. It's a little too long in places, and the battle scenes feel like they could have been trimmed by a couple of minutes, but overall, every cent of the $200 million budget is on the screen. Daniel Pemberton's score didn't disappoint, but I wish there were more variants on the main theme. They tended to use it a lot, and by a half hour in, I was kind of over it. Very similar to Michael Giacchino's score for the Batman. Don't. Like, I get it, okay? Let's move on. Now, the highlight of the score was, of course, Brian May's distinct electric guitar. What an auditory delight. And the score does remind me of a bit of Flash Gordon, in all the best ways. So if you're a fan of the original animated series, there are plenty of nods that will bring a smile to your face, including a moral lesson by Orko. The filmmakers are clearly fans themselves. And stay for the credits. There are a couple of surprises that hopefully bode well for the future of the franchise. On to the main attraction. Each review will end with a ranking out of 5 stars. 1 star is skip it, 2 stars watch at your own risk, 3 stars standard fare, 4 stars worth checking out, and 5 stars must see. Now, if I give a title 5 stars, it doesn't mean I'm comparing it to Casablanca, Jaws, or Seinfeld. I rank titles based on other movies or TV series in that genre and at that time period. On this episode of the podcast, I'm rewatching and reviewing Mulholland Drive from 2001. It was written and directed by David Lynch, who helmed space opera Dune, neo-noir mystery Blue Velvet, and surrealist horror Lost Highway. He was also the co-creator of Twin Peaks with Mark Frost. It stars Naomi Watts as Betty Elms, She emerged from the margins of the film industry in a way that now reads as one of contemporary cinema's most striking late bloomer ascents. After early years split between Australia and the United States, working in television series, commercials, and small supporting roles, she spent much of the 1990s navigating an uncertain career path marked by intermittent visibility in films like Tank Girl and Children of the Corn 4. Her breakthrough arrived with David Lynch's Mulholland Drive. The part effectively reset her career trajectory overnight, positioning her as a lead figure in the early 2000s prestige cinema. She followed this momentum with a rapid succession of high-profile and demanding roles, including The Ring, which established her as a rare actor capable of anchoring both art house complexity and mainstream horror success, and 21 Grams, for which she earned an Academy Award nomination for her portrayal of grief-stricken Christina Peck. In the mid-2000s, Watts consolidated her status as a versatile leading actress through large-scale productions such as Peter Jackson's King Kong, while continuing to pursue intimate, performance-driven dramas like Funny Games and Mother and Child. Her work in The Impossible, portraying a tsunami survivor, brought her a second Academy Award nomination and reaffirmed her ability to channel physical and emotional extremity with precision rather than spectacle. More recently, she transitioned fluidity between film and television, appearing in projects such as Birdman, The Loudest Voice, The Watcher, and Feud, Capote vs. the Swans. Watts' career reflects a distinctive balance. She's remained equally at home in psychological art cinema and commercially driven storytelling. Mulholland Drive also features Laura Harring, Justin Theroux, Ann Miller, Mark Pellegrino, and Dan Hedaya. So let's jump into it. This is what I remember. First up is the opening nighttime drive on Mulholland Drive itself. A sleek limo drives through the hills of Los Angeles, all polished surfaces and quiet tension. It's one of those sequences that instantly signals you're not in a typical Hollywood story. Then we have the arrival in Los Angeles and the introduction of Betty's World. There's a bright, almost golden optimism to these early apartment scenes. It feels like pure old Hollywood fantasy, only to find herself unexpectedly sharing it with a mysterious woman who clearly doesn't belong there. And then last, there's that series of Hollywood casting and audition moments that blend ambition with something slightly uncanny. Now I'm heading off to rewatch the movie. This is what I forgot. The film opens with a surreal, disorienting twist. A limo gliding through the dark streets of Los Angeles, only to be interrupted by a sudden crash on Mulholland Drive. A woman survives, dazed, injured, and completely without memory, soon taking on the name Rita, after spotting a poster of Rita Hayworth. This is classic Lynch. Beautiful, unsettling, and instantly mysterious. From there, the story shifts into a brighter register with Betty, an optimistic young actress arriving in LA, full of hope and old Hollywood sparkle. She moves into her aunt's apartment and quickly crosses paths with Rita. Instead of calling the authorities, Betty leans into curiosity, and the two form an unlikely partnership to solve the mystery of Rita's identity. What follows feels like a noir buddy story wrapped in a dream, hinting at something much bigger lurking beneath the surface. Intercutting all of this are glimpses of the Hollywood machine at work, auditions, casting rooms, and a hitman job gone awkwardly wrong, adding a strange rhythmic counterpoint to Betty and Rita's investigation. While all of this is being set up, it's not in a straightforward way. It's inviting you into a version of Los Angeles where everything looks familiar, but nothing quite behaves the way you'd expect. Bright, curious, and just a little uncanny, it's the perfect opening to a film that keeps you guessing from the very first frame. Here's a quote without context. "No, you're not thinking. You're too busy being a smart aleck to be thinking. Now I want you to think and stop being a smart aleck. Can you try that for me?" Mulholland Drive is one of those films that feels less like a puzzle to be solved and more like a system of emotions and symbols that you gradually learn how to read. And even then, it never fully settles into a single meaning. At its core, the film is about identity and desire in Hollywood, but not in a straightforward, industry-critical way. David Lynch constructs Los Angeles as a kind of emotional hallucination, a place where ambition, loneliness, romance, and fear don't just coexist, but blur into each other until you can't tell which feelings belong to which character, or even which version of reality you're in. What makes the film so distinctive is its structural shift. The first act plays like a shimmering noir fantasy. Betty and Rita's investigation feels coherent, almost genre comforting. But as the film progresses, that coherence starts to fracture. Characters shift, identities collapse, and the narrative quietly suggests that what we've been watching may not be real in any stable sense at all. Rather than a twist designed to reframe the story neatly, it feels like the film is pulling the rug out from underneath the idea that there ever was a stable story to begin with. That's really where the movie's emotional weight lands. Instead of asking what actually happened, it pushes you towards something more unsettling. Why did this version of events exist in the first place? The answers seem tied to longing, guilt, and the crushing emotional machinery of Hollywood itself. The way it manufactures dreams and then quietly discards the people who believed in them. By the end, Mulholland Drive doesn't resolve so much as dissolve. It leaves behind a residue, a sense that the dream of Hollywood and the nightmare of personal failure are not opposites, but reflections of each other. And that ambiguity is the point. The film doesn't ask you to decode it perfectly, but to sit with the feeling that meaning itself in this world is unstable, seductive, and just out of reach. Now for a little trivial trivia. The movie was originally a spin-off of the series Twin Peaks, and was conceived as a television pilot, but when it was rejected by ABC, it was expanded into a feature. Mulholland Drive was distributed by Universal Pictures. It was filmed at Sierra Bonita Apartments, Pink's Hot Dogs, Tower Theater, and Sunset Ranch in Los Angeles, California. The cinematography was captured by Peter Deming, whose filmography includes horror sequel Evil Dead 2, courtroom comedy My Cousin Vinny, comedy horror The Cabin in the Woods, and fantasy adventure Oz the Great and Powerful. He was nominated for one Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Cinematography for a limited series or movie in 2018 for Twin Peaks. It was edited by Mary Sweeney, who worked on psychological drama Twin Peaks, Fire Walk With Me, thriller Lost Highway, and drama Baraboo. The score was composed by Angelo Badalamenti, who wrote the music for rom-com Cousins, holiday film National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, gothic black comedy Wild at Heart, and adventure drama The Beach. He's been nominated for 3 Primetime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Main Title Theme, Music and Lyrics, and Music Composition for Twin Peaks. The runtime is 2 hours 27 minutes. It had a budget of $15 million and grossed $20 million at the box office. It was nominated for 1 Oscar at the 2002 Academy Awards. On the Ski Index, I give it 4 out of 5 stars. Take off half a star for the runtime, and another half if you've never been introduced to the weird world of David Lynch. If you've seen Mulholland Drive and have opinions on the movie, let me know what you think using the hashtag #MattForgotThat. Moving right along, each episode, I'm going to post throwback clips that I think people should watch. It could be movie trailers, music videos, interviews, or something completely random. Search for my YouTube page and there'll be a playlist called Matt Forgot That Playback. Joe Jackson is one of those rare artists whose career resists easy categorization, not because he lacked a signature voice, but because he kept refusing to sit still long enough to be boxed in by one genre. Most casual listeners know him for the sleek, nocturnal pop of Steppin' Out, but that track is really just a polished doorway into a far more restless and ambitious body of work. Jackson first emerged in the late 1970s UK music scene, alongside the post-punk and new wave surge, but even then he didn't quite behave like his peers. His early breakthrough, the 1979 album Look Sharp, introduced him as part of the same cultural movement that produced angular pop and punk-adjacent energy. Yet his songwriting already leaned more melodic and structurally traditional than many of his contemporaries. The follow-up, I'm the Man, sharpened that edge, but it was beat crazy that hinted at his unwillingness to be creatively cornered, even at the risk of confusing audiences expecting a consistent brand. But the real pivot came in the early 1980s with Night and Day. This is where Jackson effectively shed the new wave label and re-emerged as something closer to a cosmopolitan pop composer. It's the album that produced Steppin' Out, a song that still feels like it exists in its own climate-controlled atmosphere, jazz-inflected harmony, electronic precision, and a detached urban glamour that helped define early MTV sophistication. While many artists of the time leaned into synth-pop sheen, Jackson used it as a framework for songwriting that was still harmonically rich and structurally intentional. But what's often overlooked is how Night and Day signaled a broader ambition. Jackson was no longer just reacting to the music of his era, but curating influences from jazz, Broadway, Latin rhythms, and European art pop into a cohesive personal language. That ambition deepened in Body and Soul in 1984, which leaned heavily into 1940s jazz and big band aesthetics. It was a bold move that alienated some listeners who wanted another Steppin' Out, but it also clarified something essential about him. Jackson was not chasing commercial repetition. He was building a musical identity based on reinvention. One of the most respected aspects of Jackson's career is his refusal to settle into nostalgia. Even when the industry could have easily rewarded him for endlessly reproducing Steppin' Out style synth pop, he moved toward classical composition and chamber music influences in later projects. This trajectory places him at a lineage with artists who treat pop success as a starting point rather than a destination. I've selected a couple of clips of his biggest hits. They're all available in the Matt Forgot That playback playlist on YouTube. Check it out. Now it's time for the recommendation. Yes, that's the word recommendation with Matt in the middle. I'm going to end each podcast with my own recommendation of a nostalgic movie or TV series. Today I'm talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The 1987 cartoon is basically peak Saturday morning chaos in the best possible way. It takes place in New York City, but filtered through neon-colored pizza grease and comic book logic. 4 wisecracking turtles, trained in nujitsu and raised in the sewers, spend their nights fighting crime, eating absurd amount of pizza, and arguing about who gets the last slice. Their sensei and father figure, Splinter, is a mutated rat with unmatched wisdom and an endless supply of calm dad energy. Opposing them is the eternally frustrated villain, Shredder, who leads the Foot Clan with more ambition than actual success rate. Most of his plans involve teaming up with the brain-in-a-jar overlord Krang and building increasingly elaborate doom machines that almost never work out. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were originally created in 1984 by comic book artists Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird under their small imprint Mirage Studios. What started as a tongue-in-cheek indie comic parodying popular dark superhero tropes quickly took off after its first black and white issue gained a cult following. The original concept was intentionally edgy and more violent than what most fans later knew from TV, but its breakout popularity led to licensing deals, toys, and ultimately the wildly successful 1987 animated series that transformed the Turtles into global pop culture icons. The vibe of the show is pure 80s action comedy, bright colors, rubbery animation, catchphrases for days, and a tone that somehow balances superhero adventure with slapstick pizza jokes. It's less about gritty ninja realism and more about watching 4 brothers turn sewer life into a full-blown superhero franchise. At its heart, the series is a long-running reminder that teamwork, loyalty, and a good slice of pizza can defeat almost anything, even interdimensional conquest. After the breakout success of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1987 TV series, the franchise expanded into one of pop culture's most endearing multimedia machines. Toy lines, movies, video games, and spin-off series, each imagining the Turtles for new generations. Along the way, characters like Splinter, Shredder, and Krang became household names, while the Turtles themselves adapted in tone, from goofy, pizza-loving heroes to darker, more serialized interpretations, depending on the decade. Today, the franchise remains a flexible pop culture engine, constantly reinventing itself while still circling back to the same core idea: four brothers, a sewer, and a never-ending fight for New York. The series was on for 10 seasons, 193 episodes, from 1987 to 1996. That's all for this edition of Matt Forgot That. Thanks for listening to me reminisce. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Matt Seroski. You can subscribe to my YouTube page where I'll post videos and clips from the show. If you have any opinions on what I've reviewed, or want to share your own trip down memory lane, use the hashtag MattForgotThat on social. Head over to mattseroski.com for all the latest news and updates, and come back next time for the rewatch and review. But the real pivot, hinting at something much bigger lurking between the nurse. Between the nurse? What is lurking between the nurse?